Hello and welcome. My name is Jody Lynn Craven, founder of Abundance Consciousness, and this is my dear friend Heather Marie.
Hi, I'm Heather Marie, founder of Soulgate, and welcome to Channel Squared, where we have extraordinary conversations about everyday life topics.
Yes, and today we have a very special guest, Melinda Lopez, creator of The Clairs. Melinda is a spiritual empowerment coach, an Akashic record healer, RN, MSN in clinical leadership, and an intuitive. And today, with her help, we're diving into the witch wound. So welcome, Melinda.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies, for letting me be here.
Yes, amazing. I would love to hear more about your story. And like when we say witch wound, let's explain what that means. So I'll let you take that question.
Yeah. So the witch wound, actually, I'll tell a little bit about my story, but the witch wound really, plain and simple, it's really a wound of the feminine. And what I was really receiving even this morning was like this wound that we carry. It's kind of like the dark side of our femininity, because even when you think of the witch, you think of the evil old hag that lives in the woods and is ugly and is scary and she eats children and she'll put a curse on you. But in reality, if we think about that, that could be all of us when we get angry, if we're jealous and we don't express it and we don't just own it. It kind of becomes like that hidden secret that we don't want people to know about, in a sense. And so that's kind of, in a sense, what the witch wound is, but also the witch wound is our lifetimes and lifetimes that we've carried over of the persecution, of fear of being ourselves, or being seen, of our expression, of our connection, of being like our natural self. And so in a nutshell, that's kind of what the witch wound is. And for me, my story, I honestly, when people would always tell me since I was a teenager, like, you're a witch, and I would always be offended. Like, how could you call me that? And even to this day, it's like, everyone's like, you're a witch. And I'm like, I don't resonate with that. Don't call me that word. Like, that word just was like a cringe. And I didn't understand why, because I'm still in this role doing these things. And I love all the witchy things, but I was like, don't call me a witch. I don't do that. And I think as a nurse being in that field, I noticed myself really buying into the conditioned behaviors of, I needed to be this way, because if I show people who I really am, then they aren't going to accept me. They're going to shut me down. And so that's kind of when I really started diving into, what is the witch? What is the witch? And what is this wound? And why do I feel this way?
So you were like divinely called to this.
Yeah. I just got
by chance.
Yes.
Amazing. Heather, do you have something to add?
Yeah, well, I as she was talking, I was thinking about, how does the witch wound, this ancestral previous lifetime, compiling on of, experience, how does that affect us in our current experience? I think that this is a really fantastic topic that we're having today. And Melinda, I'm so happy that you're here, because you're an expert in this and how this shows up for people. And I know for me, when I first started like really stepping into my exposure of who I am and what I do, this wound came up a lot for me. It really like stifled my growth and like wanting people to see me. I just wanted to hide under a rock, really. And so like, if there are other people that are experiencing that, like what do you recommend for them to like see this wound? Because sometimes it's not being seen, right? It's like you don't see that this wound even exists. What do you think?
Like a shadow. Like when you were saying, when you were first exposed to this world, when I was first exposed, I was so afraid, and the fear was around because I felt like I was going to be killed. And I know that sounds crazy. Like, why would you even think that in this world? But I remember I would start and then something would scare me and then I would stop for 6 months. And I would start and then my husband's like, what's the matter? I'm like, someone's going to kill me. Someone's going to get me. And he's like, what are you talking about? But it was just like, if I were to really be myself, because even though we have these past lifetimes of these wounds, you know, you grow up, my mom would say, don't act like that. I don't want to hear you crying. I don't want you to see this. You need to act a specific way. Even going to nursing school, you have to be professional. You have to show up. You have to look this way. You have to act this way. And so it was just like piling on, piling. And it came to a point, I remember it was like somewhere in my 30s and I'm like, who am I? It was like I had become so disconnected to myself. So I think that how can people see it is really that disconnection and the really a nervous system response of fear of like, why am I failing? I want to connect to myself. What is this voice that I'm hearing? I'm getting scared. Something is probably mentally wrong with me, right? Because that is the witch wound. When women were connected to their intuition, they automatically were like, you're crazy, you're hysterical. If your emotions, if you got upset, they would call, that's what the definition of hysteria came from. And what did they do? They gave them hysterectomies. They disconnected them from their womb area. Yeah.
What?
Oh my God. Wow.
Yeah, like it's that deep that they actually disconnect women from their actual bodies. Yeah.
Wow. Do you think this is just totally running through my brain and I'm going to ask, do you think that it was a like a purposeful distortion to disconnect women from, the spiritual realm, from their abilities?
I think that the witch era, which still goes on today, I always say witch, like I always, I feel like it was really a gender side. Because women were feared because they were connected.
And so powerful. Man, women make babies.
Yeah.
Like, human life, incredible beings. Yeah. Wow. I know that I've definitely felt that witch wound as well. Heather, I relate to what you were saying. I kind of want to run and hide. Mine was like, I don't want to tell anybody. People are going to think I'm weird. What are they going to say? That I battled that for a while. Just understanding, like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I don't want to tell people.
And it's funny because like when I think about how that showed up for me and like how limiting that like thought actually like is, it was really empowering when I was able to go, you know what? So what? What if they think I'm crazy? They're not going to burn me at the stake. We don't live in that time frame anymore. Maybe they could persecute me online. Maybe they could, modern day witch hunt me online. Who cares? Fuck them. Oh, beep. But,
I was just going to say, it's not as easy for everybody to just say, bleep them.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Well, and, and the thing is that it's such a real fear. Like it's real, it's tangible, like the heart palpitations, the scary, like, oh gosh, if they're going to come get me, but we're not in that timeline anymore. I mean, it does still exist to some degree, right, Melinda?
Yeah.
But it's not like we're getting burned, the way we were before.
Some people are in different areas of the country, like different
of the world.
Yeah. Maybe not burned, but they're getting
persecuted. Yeah.
Really? So there's still this persecution going on. It's
there is still
different.
And you also see it by the censorship, is all I'll say.
Gotcha. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And, you know, I mean, it's just so interesting how, like, you know, we live where we live and, you know, it seems like it's not really happening. So it's interesting to hear that it's still going on. So, Melinda, how does somebody start to kind of like release some of this trauma? You
Mhm.
know, I know that you have a program that you are creating with this. You've got a group for this. You've got multiple programs that are running to assist people. But if you could you give us like a little teaser, a little tip on how to kind of get out of this cycle?
Yeah. So I would say like the very most basic thing is like to reassure your body that you're safe. Like you were saying, like we're pretty safe. We're able to be on the internet. We're doing the podcasts. Like we're pretty safe right now. So it's about reassuring our body that it is okay to speak our truth, to connect to our womb or to our heart, to our intuition, whatever it is that you feel that resonates with you. I think that that's the most important part. The monthly membership, Nurture Your Witch Room, to wake her up. And waking her up really for me is about right now, we need voices that are ready to disrupt things because with the changing of the world and how we want it to become and how what we want to embody in this new world, we need a disruption. We need to become the disruptors. So that's really what the witch is. This is about you waking her up. She's not outside of you. She is not in another person. She is right here within you and you just have to bring that out. We're going to always carry these different wounds. So how we really move through them as far as in the nurtured program is every single month we do a Akashic record journey where we clear energetically past lives and past woundings of like being disconnected, a sisterhood wounding, our anger wounding. There's different things that we move through, and we're going to energetically unwind that, release it. I mean, you can do that with, journaling, maybe hiring a coach to help you move through that. But in the records, we do it. And then we are going to bring in the witch archetype and the different energies like the oracle, the healer, the sorceress, all of these different archetypes. And we're going to wake her up within you. So it's a monthly membership, but it's 12 months long. And it's all about connection, expression, and money.
Ooh,
Cool.
that's exciting. Gosh, sign me up. I'm like, that sounds so great. Wow. Okay. So I'm like, my mind is already blown. Like,
Absolutely. Could you touch more on the archetypes that you were talking about for those who are less familiar? When I was thinking witch, I'm thinking just sorcerer or something. I don't know.
the one with the mole.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually got these from a book, and I can't remember the author. I'm pretty sure I love this book because I'm fairly new to the witch. Like I said, I think it was last Halloween. I felt this call to do a workshop, and when I hosted this workshop, I cried, and I'm like, why? Why? There was something I was so connected to, and so I just kept kind of diving in. So there's different archetypes. The witch obviously is the witch. She's kind of the whole package, but there's the healer within. So that's where your body, you have this innate ability to heal and you know what best is for your body. So obviously I resonate with the healer being a nurse. So there's the healer, there's the force of nature. This is where you are connected to nature, to the moon, to your cycles, and just like owning that you're an unstoppable force to be reckoned with in a sense.
Wow.
And then there's the creatrix or the creatress. And this is where the womb, where you can create human life, you birth life, and also you birth ideas and all part of the manifestation. Sorceress, this is literally, you are source, you are God, God's within you. You there's nothing more powerful than who you are. So in a sense, when you really can embody that, you know that there's nothing to fear, because you are it. And the reason we fear waking her up, or we fear showing people our true selves or our power, is because you fear that power of source energy that's within you. So I love that one. And then we have the Oracle. Did I say the Oracle?
Nope, not yet.
Okay. The Oracle. So this is basically where she's just in tune, in touch with all of her clairs, of course. So where she is that channel, she knows that all of her answers are within, because witches aren't just magical. Like, they are wise. They know science. They know, they're the midwives. They're the healers. They are the tribal leaders. You know, they are everything. So yeah, so those are the archetypes that we're going to work with.
Wow. So
okay, okay, go ahead, Jody. I have a question, but you go first.
Okay, I just got so excited. So
me too.
Is every woman, this is two-parter, is every woman a witch, or has the potential of being a witch? And is every woman, that being said, like also all of those archetypes that you said, or is it somebody that leans towards one or the other? Did I read your
That
mind?
was my question. Yes, that was my exact question. Oh my gosh, it's so amazing. We're all linking up here.
I personally believe that whether you're a man or a woman, you are a witch, because we've all been through these lifetimes of being persecuted, whether we have been through lifetimes of where we were persecuted and we were the persecutor. So, and yes, all of these archetypes are all within us, because it's just the energy, and it's kind of just like our like our identities, where we all hold a part of different things. And it's the same thing with the archetypes. And so, is one more than the other? Yes, because if you are naturally just a healer, of course you're going to connect to that. If you just are naturally intuitive or connected in some way, yes, you would connect to that. But in a sense, I know you too most likely are connected to all of them, because you are just so tapped in.
Yeah, it's interesting because, like, as you were going through them, I was like, oh, I think that might be me. And then the next one, oh, I think that might be me. Oh, maybe that's me. And I was like, well, maybe I'm just all those things. That's so cool.
I mean, is it possible that a part of this wound, because something that came up in my own mind, and I'm just reflecting this for people that also feel this, but as you're going through the archetypes, and I was the same as you, Heather, like, oh, maybe that one's me. Oh, maybe that one's me. And then at the end, oh, maybe they're all me. No, you can't be all of them. You're not that special. I think that's a part of it. Hey?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's what she meant by being persecuted and the persecutor. It could be self-persecution, right? I mean, yeah.
Definitely.
Wow.
Amazing.
This is so fun. What a great conversation, you guys.
Do you think that we also carry this persecution wound, not only from our past lives and our individual experience within that said past life, but also like as a collective, as the feminine collective, not even just females, but the feminine collective as a whole? Are we carrying all of it?
I feel like that there is actually, they were showing me this yesterday, or my guides, I would just call them they. They were showing me basically the moon cycling the zodiac sign. And I was like, what is that? And they were just saying that, the moon is just a representation of what us as a collective all go through, that are fairly similar. And so when you asked that, that's what immediately came to mind. So I do think that we all do carry it, but I think there's different levels as far as awareness, or to, if you're just like kind of like, whatever, I don't really care, then you just kind of blow through it. But when you are starting to say like, hey, I really kind of like doing this and it's different, and people might start thinking I'm weird, or my parents will really be upset if they find out I'm using oracle cards or tarot cards. Like, they're going to think I'm doing evil things. Even when I started doing oracle cards, I remember there was a friend, and they were like, that's so demonic. And then I would get scared because I was like, I started believing that, of like, oh my gosh, maybe I am. And then if something were to happen, oh, that was my fault because I started getting into, you know what I mean? So it's so deeply conditioned within us as a collective and our society, in a sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that it's really interesting, this conversation about how people perceive those that are expressing their abilities, right? Because the reality is that we all have them. We all have them. It's just who's expressing them and who isn't, right? And I think it's really interesting how people perceive those who are actually expressing their abilities as being evil, or, and maybe this comes from organized religion, I'm not sure, but I know when I first started speaking out about spirituality and connecting with crystal energy. And, I think everybody sort of starts off in this same little genre of like, oh, I'm going to get some crystals, and now I'm going to get some cards, and I'm going to go to yoga more, and I'm going to start breathing more. And now I'm on to yoga. And right. And so you're kind of like moving through this process. And when I first started having these conversations, I had them with my mom and dad because I felt like it was a safe place to have them. And the tone in my mom's voice when I first brought it up was, all I could see was her imagining me in the corner in a circle with candles all around me, with a Ouija board, calling in the demons, right? Like, this is how I saw I could just see it flash across her forehead. I was like, oh, I think I just freaked out my mom, and then I was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't, talk about this, maybe I shouldn't. And so I just sort of like slowly leaked a little bit out every day. And after, several years, I had them all programmed up where they didn't think I was a wackadoodle with a Ouija board, but I think it's really, I think that's a really common experience for people when they're first coming into, utilizing their abilities. Don't you think?
Yes.
Yeah. So when you work in the Akashic records, for those of our viewers who aren't really familiar with what the Akashic records are, I know we've talked about Akashic records in the past, but I don't think we've ever really like talked about what they are. So Melinda, like, kind of give us a quick version of like, what are the Akashic records and what could someone find there?
So I do work in the Akashic records a little bit differently. I work in the quantum fields Akashic records. So I guess you would say a higher realm. But the Akashic records are basically like the library of your soul. So it's all of your different past lives, your present life, and all of the potential future lives that can happen. So I know some people go in there to like where are you from? Or I don't do any of that because that's just for fun. I'm doing work to do deep, deep healing. So I basically guide you into the journey. So I take you where I'm going. We go together. And most likely you will see it. You will either see exactly what I see as I take you there, or you will go so deep into your subconscious that it feels like you're falling asleep, but you come right back right when I'm done. So we go deep into your records, kind of like the way that I see it is kind of like we go through the magical forest, because that's just what I always do. And that's where we really activate and open up your clairs and your abilities. And then we go through kind of like a castle gate, a golden gate we walk through, and then we go through like a corridor to your records. It just depends on where they take me. And then I usually will, your higher self is there and it's your records, and then we're in the quantum. So basically we do whatever wants to come up. So in a sense, if we do witch wound, then I will say, take me to your deepest witch wound that's showing up right now. And then it'll show me an experience, or either tell me an age. They usually will know right then and there. And then we depending, as we go to the past life that it's directly connected to. If it could be also ancestral. So just depends on, because we kind of find, like I call it like the cobwebs. So it's like a spider web, except when it's a wound, it's kind of a cobweb where it's all a little messy. So we kind of find where all of the webs are originating from, and then they see where has it keep showing up. It's like the patterns of this life. And then when we get there, then obviously it's not me doing the work. I give them a choice. Are you ready to let this go? Are you going to let this go? That's why I like to take people there so that they experience it. Because this isn't about me healing them. This is about them. I'm just guiding them and helping them. This is about them deciding, seeing what the culprit is, where it's from, and then deciding if they're ready to let it go. So that's kind of how we do it.
One of the things that I think is so cool is about the fact that you do this in the quantum field, right? So this alters every single timeline because you are doing it at the quantum level. And so it brought up a question about if you are, and hopefully this isn't too abstract for our viewers, but it's just a really interesting question, I think. If you have somebody, let's say, who is here from the future, okay, their soul was like developed and placed in a future timeline to the timeline that we're in. And now I know that time is not actually linear, right? It's all happening at once. It's all at the same time. We understand that. But for people who still think of time as linear, let's say that this person in this incarnation is someone from the future, and they have a wound that is in the future. Would it affect them in this instance, do you think? Do you understand my question?
I do. So if they have a wound from the future, so in a sense, yes, because there is no time.
Right.
So when you're in the records and the quantum field and you do a clearing, you don't ever, right? Like those experiences will still be there. But when you tap back, like, when you had a wound, like even like say something happened when you were a kid and you think about it, you start feeling like you kind of like you feel it, the contraction. So after we do a clearing, we always go back to that moment. And that they released parts of it is when they no longer feel that way. So when I always say, it's like, it's not that we're not undoing anything. We're not getting rid of any memories. Those will always be there. We're basically helping your nervous system to know that it's okay to move forward.
Wow.
Wow.
That's amazing. So cleaning up this witch wound, taking care of this inside of the quantum, it helps you not only in this lifetime, but in future lifetimes if you come back, if your soul comes back, right? And so what are the other benefits? Like, why would somebody want to dive into this outside of the, like letting go of some fear? I think it's way more important. And I feel like we should put some emphasis on what's going to change in your life when you clean this stuff up.
So for me, like the three, I think I already said it was like that connection, expression, and money. So the first part of the connection piece is like they show me it's like the internal, right? That's when you kind of go within and you realize like the witch wound our wounding or even our femininity. It's about reconnecting back to ourselves, to source, to the cycles of nature around us. It's just kind of becoming natural again. And this connection is also the connection outside of us. So when you get to the point of where you realize, okay, I need to come back, I need to start trusting my heart again, all of those things, and then you start using this connection to relationships, that's where the expression, the outward part comes in of expressing your voice. This is what I have to say. This is my boundaries with this relationship. This is what I'm here for. And this is what is calling me forward, or this mission, this me becoming a disruptor for the collective. And when you really do that and you come with it and you go without and you start really expressing your, I guess, true self or your authentic self or whatever you call it, that's really, in a sense, I guess, the money piece, for me at least, because abundance isn't just about material money. It's about really the whole picture, like the holistic picture of I'm within, I express you. It's just like nothing can mess with you. Like then you become what Heather says, bleep you. This is who I am, right? Like that's the true abundance. And then that's kind of what I feel is when they say find your abundance when you naturally flow. And I for me, that's really what that is.
Oh yeah. I couldn't agree more with every single thing that you said. Like if I had an exclamation button, I would like pop it up on the screen. Pew, pew.
Yeah, it's really it's about like it's the embodiment.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's so like that's such a great way to describe it. I think that's really beautiful. So I think everyone who's listening, rewind and listen to that all like second time. And everyone who's on live now, you got to come back for the replay.
That's right.
I want to say one thing that just came to me right now was wherever there's so many different witch wounds, but wherever you feel like is your greatest wound, like if it's like, oh, I have a wound and I can't really speak or whatever, like that's really your greatest source of power.
Oh,
right. And then it makes sense if you're connected with, your greatest source of power and you're utilizing that within and then bringing it to without. I mean, abundance is inevitable.
Yeah.
It's truly inevitable when you stand in your power. Mm-hmm. Wow. Whew. I feel like my mind has just been taken to a new level. New level. Holy cow. Okay.
Yeah. So I know, right? So for everyone who's watching live, if you have any questions for Melinda or you want her to, answer something specific to you, pop it up. Now's your chance. So we're monitoring the chat. So definitely jump in with any questions that you have. Yeah, I'm like, I have another one. Take a minute. Oh yeah. Yeah.
When it comes to being in the Akashic records at the quantum level, when you're seeing these experiences, you kind of describe them as like cobwebs and stuff like that. Can you give us some examples of different things that have come up that, might be something that we would automatically think of, oh yeah, that's definitely a witch wound. I would expect to see that, but maybe some things that weren't even, you didn't think, or someone wouldn't have thought that they were connected to this witch wound that maybe surprised you?
So your question is, what have I seen that was a surprise?
Yeah.
I think I'm trying to think. There's a lot. So a lot of, I'm trying to think, but there's, okay. So I have a group where we are doing, activating your third eye, and every single one of them are fearful, which they had no idea. And actually the girls all in this lifetime have, I'm trying to think, what is it? They have a wound around, I think it's the parents being separated. So they all have this same thing in this group, which is wild, first of all. And then when we went to do, we just went into the records so that I could rebuild their cones and rods of their third eye. I know I could tell you guys that. Yeah. And
Wait, you're gonna have to go back to that because I don't know what that.
okay,
Oh, more.
so basically what we found out was that they all have a fear of being there. They have this fear of actually seeing, and they're not even afraid to, because they all can see ghosts and stuff. Like they see ghosts and spirits, but they have a fear of seeing the truth.
I wonder how many people are struggling with that today.
Yeah.
Can we do a collective like healing on the world for their cones and rods in their third eye?
Wow.
So I think that is definitely related to the witch wound. We actually tomorrow night we're going deeper into the fears and actually the Akashic records.
Oh, cool. I wonder if this is just my brain running away now. I wonder if you were talking about cones and rods, and I thought, oh, I wonder if you can like rebuild, the throat chakra, as if like the pipes that are in there and like what makes the sound and whatever from a quantum perspective. Is that something you've done?
We haven't done it yet, but I'm doing mini clairs. So we have the whole clairs program, which is an 11 clairs. And then I'm doing I'm not really calling them clairs, but it's like the mini clairs program, but it's where I focus just on one. So the third eye activation, obviously it's the clairvoyance. So I haven't decided yet. I'm waiting to see which one's next, what's next. So,
I have to say, like for everyone here, that I've had the pleasure of working with Melinda as she has been developing some of these programs, and her like breadth of knowledge and level of skill and just the intuitive rabbit trail that she'll take you on is really something spectacular. I think that the programs that she has available they're key. Everybody should do them because it really gets to the root of the cause, the nuts and bolts of the problem. Like just reach in, rip it out, look at it, fix it, reinstall, and then how do you use what it is that you have learned? So, when she talks about her program, the clairs, being 11 clairs, it's not just 11 clairs. It's initiation and activation of gifts and abilities. And, like, it's like a deep dive into every single ability that you have on a soul level and how to integrate that into your human nature, like into your humanness, right? It's like you like basically going through this program. It's just, I'm so excited about it. Can you tell? Like, I'm just like, it's so awesome because everything that we talk about as intuitives and healers and spiritual teachers and leaders and all of the stuff that we talk about is covered in this program. So if someone's watching, I just want them to know that they should reach out to you, Melinda, because that the Claire's program and your Nurtured program, these are great places for people who are already picking up on the fact that they are this magical being inside of a meat suit, and they need real connection to who they truly are. It's just such a beautiful offering, and being on the inside scoop of watching you develop it has really been a wonderful gift in my life. So I think that everyone should take it.
Yeah, I definitely had the initiation of it. Yeah.
I think it's really awesome too, Melinda, that you provide a container. I mean, I love the name Nurture or Nurtured. Like the word nurture is just such a beautiful word and so necessary when somebody is opening up, in my opinion, when someone's opening up all of these gifts, because I think you can fall right into that witch wound trap of, I'm crazy and people are going to think I'm crazy and I can't trust this. There's so many things that I feel like if I could go back in time and do it all over again, it would have been much easier to do it with you by my side and a bunch of other people than trying to do it, alone, essentially.
So
Yeah.
true. I remember when I was like 19, 20s, and I would go to the doctors all the time, and he'd be like, what's your problem? And I'd be like, I just want to be normal. And he would be like, what does that mean? I'm like, I don't know. I just want to feel normal. And like literally that was like a search for mine because I always felt different and I always felt all the energies and I had no idea. I had no clue about this world or so you're right. If we would have did it at least together, it would have been so much easier.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, now we have you. So, and no one else that watches this will ever have to be alone on their journey to finding themselves again, finding these clairs, like really opening themselves up to stand in their own divinity, their own power. It's a blessing what you provide to the world, really, truly.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah. Amazing. How did you for yourself, Melinda, like transition? It sounds, you're talking about how, with your husband, like somebody's going to kill me. Like what helped you as you were transitioning through that to get to this point? Because you're obviously very, like, I can feel that you're very rooted in what you teach and truly believe in it. And you feel very, very good around all of this stuff. I don't feel any sort of fear around that anymore inside of you.
Yeah. Actually, growing up, I had a lot of near-death experiences. So it kind of just sealed in the deal of the fear that I did have. And luckily, my husband, I've been with him since I was 13, and he's never, ever doubted me. Like when I said, I hear this, I feel this. So basically, when we had our children, I started developing postpartum depression, anxiety. I had a lot of perinatal mood disorders. And that was my search of like, I want to be normal. I didn't understand. I was totally conditioned to how my parents had raised me. And luckily, my husband was so patient. And when the children started getting older, they started seeing shadows and angels. And they started like, Mommy, there's a man in the hallway. Or Mommy, God wants you to talk to him. I went to heaven. And so they would tell me all these stories and I'd be like, who are these kids? Like, what's happening? And so when the shadow men would come to them, that's where I had to start, okay, get out some books, like figure it out, like get the Bible. I knew nothing about anything. And so we started searching stuff. And on this journey of trying to help my children understand energies and how to release shadow men, that's when me and my husband kind of found past lives and our ancestry. And I started connecting to my mom's side of the Apache Native American. And I started receiving feathers and my hands was starting to get activated and I would get these urges to touch people at work and put my hands and I would see miraculous healings. And then my children are like, okay, Archangel Michael wants us to do this. And we would like literally, do like a exorcist. And it was just kind of just became our life of like, this is who we are now. This is what we do. And our mantra, we would always say, it was just, we have 4 kids now, but it was the 2. And it always say that we're so powerful together because it was like air, water, earth, fire, the 4 of us. And we would go in a circle and they were little, like 8 years old and so, but we would do these things. And that's kind of how I learned because I didn't really have internet or anything back then. It was just all pure intuition of like, okay, this is what we do. And now it's kind of into the 2 kids, they're literally starseeds, from Series B. It's like a whole transition. So it was more of like my children became my mission so that they weren't weird and they didn't have to search to be normal. And they are totally normal kids, and we still struggle, especially with the 18-year-old. We have our issues, but that was why I was no longer afraid. And it came to a point where I had almost died so many times that I was like, okay, well, you know what? I haven't died yet, and I'm not afraid anymore, because it was just such the constant initiations. And what I feel like my purpose is to help people so that they don't have to go through these near death experiences. You don't have Your soul doesn't have to shake you up so intensely. It can be gentle.
When you are talking about that fear of death, right? That so many people experience this fear of death, like, oh, I could die, like whatever this is, I could die. And I think that it's really empowering when you get into this, spiritual place where you recognize that death is a jumping off point to something else, a new experience. When you start looking at death through the lens of a jumping off point to something different than what you are currently experiencing, or something new, it doesn't seem as scary anymore. It almost like loses its power over you, that death is a bad thing. So I think that that's a really like beautiful perspective to have when you're stepping into who you are and you're allowing your soul and your heart space to drive the story of your life. That, if the worst thing in the world that can happen is death, is it really the worst thing in the world that could happen? Or is it the best thing in the world that could happen? You know what I mean? Like it changes everything, the way that you can look at living and dying and all of the experiences that you have, when you're looking at it of the lens of, is death the worst thing that you can experience?
Yeah. I remember one time in the hospital as a nurse, there was a patient where sometimes in the hospital, like if they're really sick, we put them on hospice in the hospital. It's called comfort care, where we basically keep them comfortable till they pass. And there was this one lady where she didn't have any family. There was like, stuff going on. So I would stay in there with her because I had actually had time when I would go back in there. And I remember when she passed, I saw her like a little orb, or like I can't remember. It's like gold, like goldish kind of, and it left her body. And it was almost like what I got from that was relief. It was like, I'm free. And it just left and took off. And I was always like, oh my, like it became, death became beautiful. I did work in hospice for a while because I was so like into death, of like understanding it. But I always remember that feeling of like freedom.
That's beautiful. When I think about death and near death experiences, like my own personal experiences, it always gets me every time that I didn't die. Like that it was so close, and that if, one left turn or one right turn, one other decision, and I wouldn't be here, but I am, and how significant that feels, that I didn't leave this plane at that time. That also feels freeing on the other side when you go through something really tough. Did you feel that as well, going through the experiences that you had?
Yeah, it came to a point, I think too, it's like, especially when like COVID hit, and when I was working in it and seeing so much death, that's when it really was like the huge turning point for me. It was like, you know what? Like I had just went through war for like these 3 or 4 months, intense. Like I felt the PTSD, the trauma after. It was so overwhelming. And that's when I said, you know what? Nothing is going to stop me. I'm going to speak. I'm going to do whatever I want. I don't really give a crap what anybody says or has anything to say against me. It doesn't even matter, because I literally just watched like people die every single day. And it was so hard to really, I remember going to one of Heather's channelings, and I always tell her that I remember asking Archangel Michael, like, how do I get through this? Because it was just such a different type of emotion that I never thought I would ever experience. And I remember he said that you have to basically honor them. Like me feeling sorry for them or crying, it's me saying that they don't actually have power when they do have power. They're just as powerful as I am. So honor them in that journey. And so that's kind of what I do, what I did. And I'm also honoring myself now of that. These are my gifts. This is what I have to say. And no more fear. Of course, I experience fear. You know, we all have that experience, but it doesn't stop me anymore.
Yeah.
Honor them in that journey and honor yourself. What statement, if you didn't write that down like I did, write it down. I think that's so incredibly beautiful. And I think so relevant, because there's a lot of things that people are watching right now. And, you know, you feel sad or upset or fearful or whatever. And, you know, going back to that phrase, honor them in their journey. They still have power, and honor yourself and the power that you have. It's just very, very beautiful. Thank you for that reminder.
Thank Heather.
Thank Michael.
Yeah.
Thanks all around, everybody.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Yeah. I was trying to think about when that was. I guess that was probably the summit.
Yeah.
Which I think was happening during the really, like, that was the really like the heat up of COVID. That was in what, like January of 21?
Was it? Or 2020?
No, it was in 2021. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That was really, I think that was like that big second wave.
Yes.
That
Right.
happened.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then I worked with you right after that.
Yeah.
Wow.
All comes around.
So incredible. Is there any, you know, we're running down on time now, but I want to hear from you. Is there anything that you feel called to share at this time that would be helpful for the souls that, you know, are here and are watching?
What I want to say is just like a little story of like back in the day of the shaman. There's a, I don't remember what tribe it was, but this tribe, and remember like the witch, are the shamans, they're the medicine women, they're the healers, they're all of that. But there was this tribe, and the men would rely on the women to use their voice. And when the women spoke, that's when the men were supposed to stop working. That's when they knew that they had to stop what they were doing, no matter what, take their break, do the family, whatever thing. And so when this shaman, I read this in a story. It was a true story though, but when he went to the modern world where it was creating, and he asked, where are all the women? Because the women were working. The men and the women were working. And he was like, this is exactly why everyone is burned out, because there's no woman there to use their voice, to say it's time to stop working and it's time to live and enjoy your family. So I just really like that analogy of, we're so afraid to use our voice, to speak up, to say what we want, to say like, no, I don't want to work right now. I want to actually take care of myself, or I want to be with my family. And that's actually the tradition of how it used to be.
Wow. Beautiful.
Yeah. Wow. That is beautiful. And you know what came through while you were talking? It was, you know, seeing, I think one of your gifts, if I may call it this, is just activating people that you're around. I'm sure that you're aware that you do this, but I feel like my cones are being repaired as we speak. But what came through when you said that, because of just being in your energy, seeing the truth was, that old story of the siren calling old, men to see, and like capturing them, and whatever, and seeing how distorted that was, and how it was probably, if I was to assume, a direct correlation to changing the world to what we have today, to suppressing women's voices, or that feminine voice inside of us, and in outside in our world. That's just, wow.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Amazing. Amazing. Melinda, thank you so much for coming onto our show today and sharing your knowledge. And if people want to find you, where should they go? How does someone find you if they want to work with you?
So Instagram, it's at love_Melinda. And I also have a website, lovemelinda.com.
Excellent. And we will put those links in the show notes, so you will be able to link directly to her. And this has just been such a wonderful conversation. And, I think it's one of the comments that we got was, super interesting, great perspective on the topic, totally provided a new view for me. And I think that is something that everyone who's watching can agree with. This has been life-changing, I know, for me. And I'm very grateful. Thank you for coming on today.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Melinda. And if you guys enjoyed this conversation, make sure that you hit that like button. You share it with all of your friends. Make sure you're subscribed and you've got the notification bell on so you never miss an episode. Next week, we are talking about the future is bright and how to focus on where we're going rather than the minutia of the daily life that we see in front of us. It's going to be a wonderful conversation. Thanks for being with us today. Sending you guys so much love.